first of all, to tone your canvas blue, this is a cobalt blue, you need your reference picture. I've got a white pastel pencil. You could do it with charcoal, but white is better. It doesn't cross-contaminate the acrylic paint once you start painting on. If you use charcoal and you put down any white highlights, it will pick up the charcoal and you will get a grey paint. I also have a rag and I have a pot of water in case anything goes wrong. I do have my palettes and my colours ready to go, and I will go through those in a moment once we've got the main structure of the drawing down. This is a beautiful sunset picture by Travis Rupert from Pexels. Now, to start off with, I'm going to look at, first of all, the aspect ratio. So this is the relationship of the bottom to the side, okay? Or the height to the width. The height to the width makes more sense. If you look at this one and you take your pencil and you turn it that way, you can see that you have one width and probably about a third. That means that when you have your piece of paper or your canvas that you're going to work on, you need about a one width and a third of that width, which I am. That's pretty good. But do check that out because some of the reference images are different to that. You may find that you have to cut off the edge to get a long, thin rectangle rather than a squatter rectangle. Right, so to start off with, I'm going to look at this horizon line and plotting that in. Now the horizon line is just slightly above halfway up the side. So if I say that's about halfway, okay, and I make sure I get that even. So if you hold your pencil and then you hold your finger along the bottom of the paper, if you don't have a ruler, if you have a ruler you can just measure it, you can mark that down. Now I know my horizon line needs to be just slightly above it, so I'm going to draft that in like so. Do check that that is straight. Once I've got that line in, I'm looking at this section here. Ultimately, I'm going to be plotting in the position of the sun, which is slightly left. Then I'm going to be guiding in where these waves are, and that will help me for the painting to be far more accurate. If I deal with this section, that's the most complex. So that kind of has a curve that comes down probably a little bit higher, more like that. You can measure this if you wanted to. It depends on how accurate you wish to be. Then I'm going to plot my sun in, which, if I'm looking at the middle of the picture, is slightly left. So if I imagine this as a rectangle, it's going to be slightly over here. Okay. Now remember that you're getting this reflection in the water, therefore wherever you put the sun, that reflection must tee up straight to. That means that I need my reflection about here because it's in line with my sun. Right, then I'm going to put in this part of the wave. And it is handy having that section of the sun reflection in because you can see that you get a slight kink in there. I also think it means I need to drop this down a little bit. Now with the pastels, because it's pastel, you can get a little bit of your rag and you can just wipe it clear. You could use a putty rub if you wanted to. I'm being uber lazy. Right, I'm getting that in there. I'm getting there. You can see I'm holding towards the end of the pencil. I'm trying to be quite loose. Then I've got my section of wave that comes in here. Okay, I have a section of wave that's quite large up here on this section here. So I'm going to draft in an approximate location. I have another piece of wave over here with a few lines, and it looks like you can see a few hills up here. Okay, now I've got this basic bare bone structure of where I want the sections to be. That means that I can sit down and I can get nice and accurate. I'm going to have to pull this over here because I'm right-handed so that I can see everything. And I'm going to start drafting in this crest of the wave which is coming in like so. It's lower on this section here, and then it comes up and gets a little bit, fundamentally drawing the darker shadow sections like so. Then I'm looking at the relationship to this wave, so this section to here, and again I'm just drafting that in. That means that I have a few others back here. Now I'm going to grab a rubber, just lift that out. A normal rubber will work just as well as a putty rubber if you're on toned canvas. It's good to try and be as accurate as possible. Okay, drawing that in, drawing that in, and then drafting in these separate waves up here. And there's another one, and another one. And then I'm going to drop down that horizon just slightly so that it gives the right spacing between the waves. Okay, I've got a lot more waves towards the horizon line, and they're going to be really nice to do because they've got this strong orange crest of the sun bouncing off them. That one comes in line with another wave. You can see that wave there, and it kind of dips. And bows. We've got a few just over here. That means we've got that one now. And then I'm going to draft in, you can see this slight curve down here. And then you get the thickness of this slight gentle wave lapping on the sand towards the bottom right section along here, and it has this twist. Can you see that twist? Like so. And you've got this wave that's just cutting in and coming over. Okay. Right, I've got a few little sprinkles down here of slightly thicker water. Then that comes up, arches over and wraps round like so. We've got our sun over here, and that's going to give us a slightly speckled orange highlight on the water, and that's in line, which is good, always handy. Okay, I'm going to use my rubber, just take out lines I do not need or wish to have. May cause me a confusion for when I'm painting, not knowing which lines to go and paint up towards. And that's why we're doing it in the pastel. You can remove it rather than painting the lines in, which are a little bit more unforgiving. Once you've done that, if you wanted to, you could also put bands for the colour changes that you can see in the sky sections. You've gone orange into a yellow, into a slight pink, into a blue. Okay, you will get a little bit of a cerulean blue up here, and this is more of a cadmium orange towards the bottom. A little bit of crimson will give you a nicer pinkier glow at the upper atmosphere section. Right, let's get going. Right, so I've got my palette here. It's a bit of a messy palette because I was using it earlier, and I'm going to just top up actually on my ultramarine blue. Always a good blue to have when dealing with seascapes. And I'm going to go through it now. Don't worry about the messy bits of colour. We'll just concentrate on the colours that are accurate, and I'll be mixing new. I've got cerulean blue. This is particularly good for sunsets. Cobalt blue, which again can be handy with a cerulean blue to make nice sky blues. Ultramarine, they're going to give us the darker lilacs and dark blue shades that are in the sea. I've got some crimson red, which is going to help with those darks. A little bit of a purpley lilac-y feel. Cadmium red, that's going to generate these oranges. I have a black, which in case I do need to go a little bit darker, can be good. Then I have a white that's just here to highlight, to give me the stronger suns. I have the cadmium for the oranges that I'm going to generate, and I also have a lemon, and the cadmium and the lemon will probably be used in both the upper sky section and some areas of the sunset reflection in the sea. I have a yellow ochre, which is really good for sand sections and can make some lovely rich oranges if you wish. Now the brushes I'm going to be using are a mix bunch. Okay, there's nothing special about this lot. I've got quite a few large chisel heads. Now the size of the brush is suitable for the area that you want to paint down. If you want something very realistic, then you're going to probably be going for something a bit smaller. If you want it a little bit more loose and freer, then go for a larger brush. You'll find that if you've got a flat head or a chisel head brush, that will make it a little bit more of an abstract painting as well. If you want it more realistic, then you're better off going for a round or a pointed head brush. Okay, I've got a decorator's brush, which can sometimes be handy for blending one colour into another very quickly. I also have a slanted brush, just because I picked one up quickly, and I have a palette knife. Now the palette knife can be used. It's clumsy, it's better for larger paintings. So probably you're looking at A2 size paper or canvas, gives you a decent range. We might find that we're doing it a little bit like a tonking effect, which we'll go over as we go through the painting. So let's start off gentle, shall we? Okay. Right, we're going to start on the sky section. Now to start on sky section is quite a lot of big areas of blending, so I would recommend using a bigger brush. Depends on how small you're going. This is A4, so it's pretty small a scale. We're going to work from the light towards the darker shades, so ultimately orange up into my blues that I can see here. So to start off with, we're going to mix a really nice rich orange. I'm going to take some cadmium yellow and I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium red. I'm going to stir them in. They're both very hot shades, and that's really nice for a sunset. You can see here you're getting that sun-kissed Luca shade. Okay, and you probably want to make a decent quantity of this. With acrylics, because they dry so fast, it's better to have too much than not enough, and it can be a bit of a pain to try and recreate exactly the same shade that you had earlier. The other problem you can get is that sometimes the colour doesn't mix evenly. You can see I've got a little bit of yellow there, so really give it a thorough mixing with your brush. Try to keep it on the upper half of the brush section, not on any of the ferrule. Okay, so just laying in some of that orange. Like so. Then as it comes up, it's going to become lighter. I'm adding a little bit of white into that orange. As you can see here, I'm dabbing that in. I'm then going to take my decorator's brush and I'm going to smooth the two into one another. Now I'm not going to try to do this too much, or you're going to end up with all one colour. and you want a variation of colour. You want it darker on the bottom and lighter on the top. Okay, if you're finding that it's going too light, add a little bit more of a darker orange. So remember that cadmium. Throw that in there along the bottom. Try and be even. Take that decorator's brush. And work it in, like so. Right. I'm going to take that excess orange off my brush, but I still want to keep some of it on, but I need to really lighten it as I go up into this lovely pale yellow. Okay. I'm cleaning my painter's brush. Bring that down. Got a little bit too much water. You can see how diluted that's made the paint. But it doesn't matter. I'm going to add a little bit more on that side, it'll be fine. Going to require a little bit more thicker paint to even out the water content. I'm going to use this brush because it's not got so much water in it. And I'm going to take a little bit more of that bright orange. So you can see it's a game of gradually building it up. Going a little bit too light and then throwing in a few stronger shades and making the paint a lot thicker as it goes up. I'm going to add a little bit more of my white. I'm going to take some of that yellow into this white now. I'm going to take my rag. I'm going to take off the excess paint and use this brush to blend it out. So there's a lot of mixing on the actual surface of the canvas. And in the process of mixing on the surface of the canvas, it means that you're going to get a gradient that looks smoother of colour. I can lighten this up here. So the paint is nice and wet and thick. Do it really easily. Do keep cleaning your brushes though, because you will pick up the darker orange and everything will end up just one light colour otherwise. You need it to change. And up this top section, I want it to go a little bit more pinky. I'm going to add a little bit crimson with white. It's going to be a very pale washed out pink. Just up on this upper section of the sky. And as it comes up, it's going to go into a slight cobalt. And because you've got a little bit of yellow on there on your brush, you might find it goes a tad green. If it does, you need to clean your brush, wipe off the excess using a rag, even. Just bring that up. Into a stronger cobalt. You do need to make sure you do this fairly quickly because the acrylic is going to dry. You need to probably add a little bit of water to your brush just to blend it out and keep it all a little bit wet to get that smooth transition. This is much easier done in oil paint than acrylics, but it can be done. It just is a little bit of a battle. You might find you have to and fro a little bit with the yellow and the pink. I'm not adding anything into this acrylic except for water. Water and paint. Now it is drying a little bit faster than I want. It's going to be a battle of will. This is not an easy technique. It requires a lot of practice, and also you can see that you are unlikely to get it right first time. See how I'm going back in and making some areas a little bit more sharper, building up. Just like that. I'm not too worried about the sun at the moment. I'm going to put that in later. I'm more worried about the overall colour balance and making sure that I get those bleeds. Right, I'm going to let that settle, and then I'm going to work into the sea now. I'm going to work on the water section now. This is all working on the basis of contrast between dark and light. So you can see these lighter sections in contrast to the darker areas of the waves. You do have aerial perspective going on, and that means that towards the horizon line you want to go more towards the bluey spectrum of colours. As you come closer to the viewer, then use your oranges. It'll work very well and give you an illusion of depth in your painting. I'm going to use ultramarine blue, a little bit of crimson to give me quite a strong dark purple. I'm just going to draft in those darker areas. cleaned my brushes. Do clean them. The acrylic will destroy them if you don't clean them regularly. I've got a slightly smaller brush because I'm working on this horizon and working down, and it's so far away and tiny. I need something a little bit more smaller. I'm going to introduce the orange that I was using for the sky, and that's going to be around this section. just a matter of working constantly in to the detail. Okay. And this can take a lot of time, I warn you now. It's working one wave at a time, thinking about the different types of textures you're going to get, and being as accurate as you can. A bit of reflection from the sky using the cobalt. Rather nice touch. Remember to work the painting as a whole. Put down the colour. Okay. Let's put it into the sand. I'm going to take some of the yellow ochre, add in a little bit of cadmium, really nice goldeny sandy beach, particularly goldeny there, and then it dries out into a little bit more of a browner peach. If you look at the reference shots. So to make it brown, you're going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue and add that in. Now if it goes a little bit greeny, it means you need to add a bit of red. If you add a crimson red, it'll go for a darker brown. And then it's about balancing take grab a little bit more of that yellow ochre, cadmium, orange. Section of where the sun is coming to the sand. Can add a little bit, like I said, working as a whole. Just towards the water. I have to dilute that, a little bit of white, and add a little bit more yellow into that mix. Just on the edge of the water, that part, and on that part. Gonna lighten that water a little bit, and it's a tad pinkiness. Just gonna work it into that because I wasn't too happy. Like that. Exaggerate the thinness of the water over the sand. Okay, add in a little bit of speckliness. You could use a thinner brush, just fancy to make it a little bit more looser down here. So I'm using a little bit bigger brush, but yeah, it's personal preference. I'm going to put in the sun. So I'm going to use lemon yellow with a lot of white. Very nice bleached out. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of ochre in that just to warm it up because it looks a bit cold. I'm going to put that in. Just over here. I'm going to get a clean dry brush. I'm just going to dabble around the edge of that paint so it's not such a crisp hard circle. It'll look far more realistic. A little bit more white. I'm going to clean my dabbling brush. Just dabble that in. Like so. I'm going to add a little bit more orange down here. Sun reflection. And to be quite honest, I'm just going to clean up a little bit more darker water tone around here. So I felt that it wasn't quite enough. Just like that. Bring it in just a little bit here and there. And there you go. One beach scene.